want to be clear, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not doing anything specifically to hurt my family. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to get revenge. I don't want to get back at them. I don't want them to hurt or suffer. All I want is to be seen as a person. That's it. I don't even care if that will is ever found. All I want is to be seen as a person that could be loved. And that's something that I'm never going to get from my family. I know that. I know that because I know they don't love me and they never have. And I can't make that stop hurting. But it doesn't mean that I want to see them hurt. I'm not like that. That's what they say I'm like. Because it's easier to hate somebody that's like that. My aunt has so many videos about how worthless I am. How my life has no honor. She knows nothing about me. She saw me on summers and winters when I was an abused child that was being self-medicated. Well, not, but I guess it's not self-medicating if somebody else is medicating you. When I was a teenager, my grandmother was giving me drugs. I wonder how many of the family members were even aware of that, other than Kathy and Martha. Martha knew. Because Meemaw left her the drugs, the pills to give me if I got upset. By the time I was 13, my grandmother had me on her anxiety medications. Because there was something wrong. And she couldn't take me to a doctor and have me diagnosed because my parents wouldn't fill out any forms. They specifically refused to give my grandparents medical release forms for me because they wanted to make sure that they never took me to a hospital or a doctor for anything that wasn't life-endangering. They gave them medical consent forms for my little sister. So when she came over and she hurt her arm on the trampoline, they had the consent forms they needed to take her to the hospital. But if I was hurt, unless it was life-endangering, like an emergency room situation, my grandparents had trouble even taking me to a doctor. I wasn't allowed to have a doctor. None of us had doctors except my little brother. I could have had one, though, because my grandparents were taking care of me and they wanted to know what was wrong. My parents stepped in the way of it, and since they were my parents, they legally had that right. So Meemaw started giving me the anxiety medications that she was being given after my grandfather passed away. And I'm pretty sure on that trip that Kathy is talking about, it must have been soon after my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother was either not with us or she stayed back at the hotel. I never should have been alone with the rest of my family in that situation. My grandmother was always there to take care of me because she knew the rest of the family didn't understand. She says so even in the will, that the rest of the family would leave me to die. All I want is to be understood I'm not this horrible person that destroyed our family. Our family was never a complete fixture. It was never fully anything that could be destroyed because it was always fractured and in shatters. There's a reason why each one of my grandmother's children has a different nickname for her as a grandmother. That's not something that happens in every family. That's something that happens in very disjointed families. They can't agree even on what to call the matriarch. Is she grandmother? Is she grandma? Is she mommy? Is she meemaw? Is she everything? Meemaw should have been allowed to adopt me. And I have a lot of hurt in my heart that my parents wouldn't let her and that Kathy won't even allow it to be symbolic. You know, Kathy loves to tell me that that Meemaw was not my mother. Meemaw's also not Martha's mother. My grandmother had 3 girls. When she had 3 girls, she birthed 3 girls. When she passed away, she had 4. There was Catherine, Kathy, Katrina, and Martha. Now, one of these names sounds very much different because it was named by another woman because she was birthed by another woman. Martha was Meemaw's sister. I believe she was the last before our great-grandmother Sini was put in a mental hospital for decades. Because Martha was born so close to, I believe, Catherine, it might have been Katrina that she was raised up with. She was born close in age to one of Meemaw's daughters, and her mother was gone in a mental hospital, and it was all in the same house anyway, so Meemaw raised her up with her children. And when Martha was in her 60s, I believe, it was mid-90s, Meemaw finally got the paperwork together to legally adopt her, so that by the time Meemaw passed away, Martha was legally her daughter. They all felt that that was right, that Meemaw raised her. It was important for all of them that that happened. Meemaw also raised me. And I'm not even allowed to feel in my heart that she's my mother. Because Kathy said no. All my life, Kathy has reminded me, she's not your mother. She's just your grandmother. You're not special. There's 36 other grandchildren. If you were a daughter, you would be special and worthy of love, but you're just a grandchild, and grandchildren get nothing. Meemaw raised a lot of kids. She raised her mother's children, she raised her children, she raised me. And I've never been accepted as in this family as somebody that my grandmother raised. I've always been seen as like some hobo child that wandered into the forest one day and fucked everything up. Nobody wanted me. It was like a curse. But I'm not a curse. I'm not an evil, violent, bad person. I didn't abandon the family by growing up and getting married and moving out, or by having them take me when I was a baby. one of the big things they say, my sisters hate me because I left. I didn't have a choice. My grandmother took me the day I came home from the hospital. And after that, it was every summer, every winter, every time I wasn't in school, they came to take me away. Could I have asked to stay? Yeah, but why would I have when that house was hell? It was a constant screaming nightmare. And I had the chance to leave it, and I did. And I get why my sisters would be hurt by that, but it's not my fault that they weren't given the option. It's just kind of the way life worked out. I happened to have been born in my grandmother's car. She happened to have taken a special affinity to me because of it. And sometimes life just works that way. But instead of it being seen as my grandmother taking me and trying to create me in her image, trying to make me her child, it was seen as me abandoning ship as a baby, just running off and abandoning ship to be with my grandmother. They think that my grandmother bought my love, but you can't buy a child. If a child loves you, it does not matter how shiny the bicycle the stranger's holding is. If a child loves you, you cannot buy that child away with vacations or clothes. But if the child doesn't feel loved and has no reason to care about you because you have no care for them, you might be able to buy that child away. If that's what you're trying to do. I don't think my grandmother was trying to buy my love. I think she was trying to buy away all of the pain she knew I was going through at home. She didn't know that that wasn't possible to do. My grandfather was buying her everything she wanted, and it was making things better for her. There's so many conflicting emotions with me and my family. My grandmother knew what was happening in that house. And as good as she would take care of me at her house, she would just take me right back and drop me off and leave me knowing what was going to happen. I just want to be accepted. I want to be accepted by the people I've been begging to accept me my whole life, which means it's never going to happen, because it's been 37 years already. I'm different, and I can't help that. But I didn't do any of it to hurt any of you. I'm broken, and I don't know how to fix myself. I simply don't.